Let's chat some more now about the World Economic Forum in Davos and what comes out of it. We're joined by the One Campaign's Policy Director for Rural Development and Inclusive Growth. That's Anita Okemini. Anita, a very good morning to you. Thanks for your time. I mean, we've had 3 days of talks of high-level leaders. We've had presidents and other business leaders at this meeting in Davos. But do you see that anything tangible has come out of this, especially for people on the ground?
So I do think that there are tangible programs coming out of this, and I think Davos has changed over time. When it was started in 1971 by Professor Schwab, I think the initial idea behind it was to bring business leaders together. But you've seen over time the realization that it's not enough for the business leaders to talk. We need to ensure that the business leaders, the policymakers, the CSOs are involved in discussions. And we're also transitioning from just dialogue to a situation in which we're moving the dialogue to creating tangible roadmaps. So I've been in several discussions where it's about starting a program which is focused on addressing, for example, peace in Africa, for example, building sustainable cities. So I do feel like there are plans to ensure that it's not just dialogue, but that's translated into tangible impact in countries like ours.
We've also seen, Oxfam especially coming out saying that talk shops like this don't actually deal with inequality. It's actually getting worse for the poorest of the poor. So you'd have to ask, what's the point of such meetings at all?
I think the first point is for the learning and just developing an understanding of what the situation is. So I would say I have learned a lot through this experience. For example, the world is changing. We're going into the fourth industrial revolution. African countries, at least most African countries, have not even tapped into the second industrial revolution. We still have above 600 million people who are without electricity. So the first thing is developing an understanding of where the world is heading. And if African countries are not involved in these talks, they won't understand that. Secondly, I think there's been a lot of discussion on inequality and what the fourth industrial revolution means for inequality. So African leaders now have to take ownership and say, now that we realize what the fourth industrial revolution is, we realize that we need to change the skill sets of our job market. They then take that and actually create tangible outcomes through the right policy, I think. So given that, it's not just a talk shop. I think that there's learning that is then translated into policy.
Now, we know that quite a few meetings requested with Paul Kagame. He's the new head there of the AU Commission. And just looking at, do you think that there was any impact? I'm not sure as to what exactly was discussed with him, but just from what you're hearing, Anita, being on that side, are we encouraged that there have been sort of requests and high-level talks with Mr. Kagame as well?
I would say yes, and I would take it back to the theme for this year, which is shared prosperity in a fractured world. We have a lot of conflict in the African region. You look at the whole of the Sahel, from northern Nigeria, Niger, Chad, you see that there are conflicts. And I think most of these meetings have been focused on addressing these conflicts and thinking through development, not just solving the actual war element and the military solutions, but actually thinking through utilizing development to stop conflicts from happening. So I think that has been a big part of these discussions. And as we move towards the AU summit and the heads of states are going to be meeting in the next couple of days, a lot of learning from that is going to be going into that discussion. So looking at corruption, transparency, and how they influence migration, the refugee crisis, and peace generally. So I do feel like there is learning, and I do feel like we should see some of the trends from this going into the AU summit also.
All right, we look forward to that. Thank you very much. The One Campaign's Anita Okemini. We're back after the break.